Welcome all of the members and staff and any guests to the annual meeting of the NGHP Holding Corporation. We have already satisfied the need to know who's here, so there's no need to call the roll. So we'll go directly to the election of officers. It's tab number 1. All had a chance to take a look at it. Are there any questions, comments related to the resolution, which if passed, will elect officers for NGHP? Hearing none, may I have motion, please, to approve the roster?
So moved.
Is there a second, please? John Johnson, thank you very much. All in favor, please indicate with aye.
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 Are there any opposed? Are there any abstentions? Hearing none, the motion passes unanimously. The second agenda item, the minutes of the May 5, 2021 board meeting behind tab 2. Does anybody have questions or comments, any corrections for the minutes? Hearing none, may I have motion, please, to approve the minutes? Errol, thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Wellington. I'm sorry. All in favor, please indicate with aye.
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 Are there any opposed? Are there any abstentions? Hearing none, the motion carries unanimously. We're going to go to the third agenda item, the mission statement and performance measures and metrics. Sarah's going to walk us through the revisions.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chair. As the board members are aware, the NGHP Holding Corporation is a subsidiary of DASNY, and as such, the policies and procedures of DASNY apply to NGHP as well. There are a few items of corporate governance that do have to be approved by the subsidiary board. The first of those is the mission statement and performance metrics and measures. The NGHP Governance Committee reviewed these items at its Governance Committee meeting on March 1st, 2022, and revisions are being recommended to the performance measures goal 2, as well as item number 2 of the metrics. So I will turn it over now to Craig Schreivogel, who will be presenting and explaining what those recommended changes are.
Yes, thank you, Sarah. Before your consideration is a proposed minor change to the performance measures and metrics submitted annually to the New York State Authority's Budget Office by NGHP Holding Corporation. While the mission statement and measure metric 1 remain unchanged, the second measure and metric need be updated to reflect the refunding of the North General Secured Hospital bond issuance through a state PIT issuance in June of 2021. And to more accurately reflect the percentage of lease payments received that are being passed along to DOB. So as you recall, NGHP currently owns property associated with the old North General Hospital campus, which is leased to HHC for their use as a long-term acute care hospital. Annual lease payments from HHC are first used by NGHP to cover costs associated with the property. Then the balance has historically been forwarded to DOB to offset payments being made under the state service contract. Seeing that there are no longer any secured hospital bonds outstanding, existing reference in the ABO metrics to ongoing state service contract payments to bondholders is no longer applicable. Thus, the language in measure metric 2 is merely being updated to clarify this point. Excess lease payments received by NGHP will continue to be forwarded to DOB, but instead as reimbursement offset to the state for past and/or current financial obligations. Furthermore, a slight reduction in the percentage of lease payments accreting to New York State for such financial obligation is being proposed to better ensure that goals are met, as lease payments from HHC can fluctuate annually. As you can see, the proposed changes are mostly just an effort to clean up obsolete language. Those conclude my brief remarks, and I welcome any questions you may have.
Thank you, Craig. Are there any questions for Craig? Comments? I'll make a comment, Greg. You're doing a great job with the president's report. And I wanted that in the record.
Thank you, Al.
Then may I have a motion, please, to adopt the mission statement and revised performance measures and metrics?
When did we start North Gym? Like
So
2010?
moved.
Wait, we just got a question.
When did we start that? Like
2010.
2010, right?
Yeah, over 10 years ago. Yeah, you'll hear it in my president's report coming up in a minute. So
Okay. All right. Sorry for jumping out ahead of this.
I jumped out to you. All right, may I have a motion, please, to approve the performance metrics?
So moved.
Thank you, Wellington. Is there a second?
Second.
Janice, thank you very much. All in favor, please indicate with aye. Aye.
I believe I get one of those.
Are there any opposed?
Anytime.
Are there any abstentions? Hearing none, the motion carries unanimously.
Money from.
We're going to go to the bylaw, the bylaws. Sarah, will you give us a comment on the bylaws?
I sure can. And I'll also ask that if everyone could just put themselves on mute. We're getting some background noise here. Thank you. So the last item of business for this board to consider today before the president's report is the annual review of the NGHP bylaws. The governance committee reviewed those bylaws at its corporate governance meeting on March 1st, and no changes are being recommended at this time. So, Mr. Chair, we just need to approve those, and then we can move along to the president's report.
The president's report. Thank you. Are there any questions from any of the members about the bylaws which have not been revised? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please, to approve the NGHP bylaws?
So moved.
Thank you, Janice. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Wellington. All in favor, please indicate with aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Are there any opposed? Are there any abstentions? Hearing none, the motion carries unanimously. Our last agenda item is the president's report.
Now we'll give delegate to Greg Schreiber, my president's report. Greg?
thanks, Ruben. My presentation today will be brief and is intended to provide an overview of the annual NGHP President's Report, which is included in the board materials. I will touch on the history leading to now and events that have transpired over the last year since the May 2021 annual update. So by now, I believe most all are aware of the circumstances that led to NGHP receiving title to North General Hospital following its bankruptcy and ultimate closure over 10 years ago. A detailed account of the history has been presented to the board previously and is included in the accompanying written president's report. As for current events, NGHP continues to lease the main hospital building to New York City Health and Hospitals Corporation, or HHC, for use as a 210-bed long-term acute care hospital. As required, HHC made its annual lease payment to NGHP last year, and such payment was first used to cover property insurance costs while the balance was applied to the final secured hospital bondholder payment in August 2021 at the request of Division of Budget. In late breaking news, not included in the written report, HHC made its 2022 annual lease payment just the other day, which was actually earlier than anticipated. As you may further recall, both the North General and Interfaith Medical Center secured hospital bonds were refunded through a state PIT issuance last June, as approved by the DASNY board. Couple that with the maturity of the Wyckoff secured hospital bonds last August, and I am pleased to report that there are no longer any secured hospital bonds outstanding. So what does that mean for NGHP, you may ask? Well, for one, it resulted in this board needing to change performance measures and metrics as accomplished just minutes ago. And secondly, it satisfies one of two conditions needed in order to convey the NGHP property to HHC and ultimately dissolve the NGHP subsidiary. It should be further noted that once HHC stops receiving Medicaid capital cost reimbursement attributable to the lease, such lease payments to NGHP will no longer be required, and the property shall be conveyed to HHC, and the NGHP subsidiary can be dissolved. I know many of you are looking for a date certain as to when NGHP can be dissolved. Unfortunately, I can only tell you that it is expected sometime this decade. That concludes my prepared remarks, and I'd be happy to take any questions.
We renew our DNO policies though for all that, right? For
Yeah, of
our
course we
roll
do.
on that.
Yes, sir, of course we do.
Sometimes these subsidiaries sort of drift into their own.
Craig, again, a great report.
Yes, we thank
Thank
Craig.
you. Are there any questions for Craig? Comments? Hearing none. Is there any other business then to come before this board? There being no further business, no additional business, may I have a motion, please, to adjourn the meeting? Terry, thank you. Is there a second? Darrell, thank you. All in favor, please indicate with aye.
Aye.
Is there any opposition? Are there any abstentions? Hearing none, we are adjourned unanimously.
Okay, so let's stop this recording